Let's take a look at section 1.6, number 6. In this problem, we're given two equations, so I'll label it. Equation 1, we're given the volume of a cube as a function of the side length of the cube. And equation 2, we're given the surface area of a cube as a function of the side length of the cube. So question A wants us to come up with a formula where S is a function of A. So here, this is saying that S is our output value. So you can think of that as your Y values, and A is your input value. So you can think of that as your X values. Okay, I always like to draw a little coordinate graph here to visualize my variable. So I'm coming up with an equation for S as a function of A. So here, if we take a look at the second formula, so let's write down the second formula, we have a formula that involves S's and A's. We have a formula for surface area as a function of the side length. But here, I want to find a formula for the side length as a function of area. So basically what we're looking for is we're looking for the inverse function. We're looking for the inverse function of A. All right, so that basically means take this equation and solve it for S. So if we solve this for S, we're going to divide both sides by 6. It gives us S squared. So S, we'll have to take the square root of both sides. To get S is the square root of A over 6. Okay, now when we get to question B says, okay, now if we let V equal G of S, then what would G of F of A be? Okay, so notice that G of S represents, okay, the volume of the cube as a function of the side length, okay? And so here we are going to find G of F of A, which represents the volume. So this represents the volume. But instead of having the volume be a function of S, now it's the volume as a function of F of A. So then we have to ask ourselves, well, what's F of A? Oh, look, F of A is the same thing as S. So really, F of A is the same thing as S. Okay. So if we go back to part A, we found out that the formula for S, which is the same thing as F of A, okay, is the square root of A over 6. So now we can take that and we can substitute it into the appropriate part in question B. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, V is the same thing as G of F of A, right, where G is the volume, okay, and the formula for volume, I'll use green here, is formula 1. So that formula is S cubed, right? But we're going to substitute now S with F of A. So F of A is the square root of A over 6. So now we're going to take the square root of A over 6 and cube it. So G of F of A is the square root of A over 6 to the third power. Okay, and then I'll leave you to answer and interpret what that means in part C.